Hey guys, welcome back to the Ion Cricket. It's been quite a while, but we are back and we are here with a bang because it is IPL season. It is that time of year. People are buzzing. The IPL squads have been announced. Players are back in training, back in their kits, some in new kits for the first time. And here at the Ion Cricket, we are here to break down all the squads, our share predictions, our thoughts, and what you might want to look out for this entire season. So joining me today will be Viren, someone who's very passionate about the game, very passionate about Sri Lankan cricket as well, and someone who's extremely happy. I know for a fact that there are a lot more Sri Lankan names this time around than the previous years. We went from having almost nil, then the one player that was going into a coaching role temporarily, then coming back, and now slowly we've started seeing the more likes of more young players, which is another promising thing to see. So Viren, what before we get into all the squads, what are your general thoughts on the IPL coming up this far? It's been like we were just discussing 17 years. You know, just a little thought of of the impact of the IPL so far.
Thanks, Hari. I can still recall the very first game of the IPL way back in 2008 when Brendan McCullum and KKR took RCB to the cleaners at the Chinnaswamy. To think that it's the brink of the 17th season is a testament to the BCCI and Indian cricket as a whole for making this a marquee fixture now on the international calendar. Teams actually now clear out their windows for the IPL. Even though we have a T20 World Cup in 3 months, many teams, including Sri Lanka, are forced into not having any international fixtures during the IPL window so that their players are available for the IPL because it is the most lucrative franchise league in cricket nowadays, and it's important for players to get that exposure. So the BCCI has worked their magic, forcing cricket boards or the less prominent cricket boards or the less financially well-off cricket boards to have no other choice but to provide no objection certificates for their players to go out for the full duration of the IPL. And yeah, I, I would be lying if I say um, that we as international cricket fans want the proliferation of such T20 leagues. I think it's important for us to go back to taking pride in international cricket, but it is what it is nowadays, and I only see this worsening on that front. I read an article the other day where Ravi Shastri said that there are preliminary discussions in place for a two IPL cycle in a given year. So that's 4 months of cricket uh, purely revolving around the IPL. So we'll get to that later on, but I look forward to this season. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here. I know you have your obvious favorites yet again, uh, but post the mini auction, I think there are some sides that look a tad stronger than they did last year. So we'll get to that later on in the discussion.
Yeah, I think also it's really interesting to note that this is also the last season before another mega auction. It just seems like almost few months ago when we had just a few years back when we had the last one, and that changed up a lot of things in the IPL system. You had two new teams, and here we are again at that time around. And I think this season is going to be huge in how the IPL teams structure themselves going forward. And I think one thing we've seen from season one to now is it's become a lot more professional, a lot more well thought of. You have numerous think tanks involved. It's not just something that cricketers go on their off season to have fun. It's something that they take very seriously a lot of times. So in this episode, we'll be focusing on 5 of the 10 teams since there's a lot to talk about. So for this episode, we will be talking about the CSK squads, the Mumbai Indians, Rajasthan Royals, Gujarat Titans, and Lucknow Super Giants. And to kick things off, we will start with the Gujarat Super Titans. Gujarat Titans, my bad.
They are
So
a super
Viren,
out. They are a super
uh,
outfit, so you weren't wrong on
that
that front.
yeah, not completely wrong, but yes, yeah. So Viren, now looking at this squad, I just want to know what do you see as obvious strengths and some obvious weaknesses in this thing, and then from there maybe we can go on to a discussion of what their ideal 11 might be going into their first few games, perhaps.
So, I mean, going into the third season, they're already champions of the IPL. a, a feat that some franchises still haven't achieved after 16 years. Not zoning in on any franchise in particular. A weakness a huge a huge gap that's been left in their squad is that revolves around leadership. Um, Hardik Pandya's absence is going to hurt them in my books. When you have a stalwart, a captain, a role model, a figurehead who has steered the franchise over the past 2 years, they've reached two consecutive finals. Would have, if it was not for Ravindra Jadeja's heroics last year, they would have been two-time champions in just their first two seasons. Um, but losing Pandya's services might hurt them. But if you look at the balance of their squad, it has a very strong core. You're talking about players like Shubman Gill, David Miller, Rashid Khan, um, who've been around the GT franchise for the past 2 years, and you've got an experienced set of overseas players who might not feature day in day out, but who are match winners and who have won World Cups, etc. in the past. I'm looking at Matthew Wade, Kane Williamson, two players who, in my books, won't feature in the GT's best playing 11, but have ICC titles under their belts. With Kane Williamson, you have a World Test Championship winner. With Matthew Wade, you have a T20 World Cup winner, plus an ODI World Cup winner from 2015. You have pedigree in there, and that's championship winning pedigree. Um, and do you want me to get to the optimal playing 11, or do we speak about that later on?
I think I just want to add a few of my opinions
Yeah.
as well. I think we touched on the topic of leadership. I think a lot of times we talk about leaders as just tactics and the way they handle players and stuff like that. But I think a lot of it also boils down to the personality of a leader. I think when we look at cricket's best leaders, be it a Ricky Ponting, be it a MS Dhoni, be it an Arjun Ranatunga, they all had very strong cultures, very strong personalities, and a lot of times you find that when their teams are the most successful, that culture seems to radiate throughout the team. You see other players embodying the best of these leaders and creating a nice positive culture. And you saw Hardik Pandya do that. He bought somewhat of a Dhoni-esque, I would say,
Yeah.
style of backing players and making them reassured. He worked very well with the coaching contingent, formulating great plans, putting up great 11s, and it's a huge loss to GT. I think back 2 years ago when people heard that okay, Hardik Pandya is going to be a captain, a lot of us did raise eyebrows, myself included. But he went ahead and proved us all wrong, and he did a fantastic job. So while I would say, it is a huge minus for them not to have him, I think it also poses an interesting opportunity because you have a very young player in Shubman Gill, someone, who's been touted to be the next big thing in Indian cricket. And when you have him early on in your side, someone who's already seen quite a bit of success, quite a bit of, responsible knocks, he's been a part of good dressing rooms. It gives him a good opportunity to hone himself as a lead and create himself as a stalwart for this franchise, similar to how Virat Kohli has been for RCB or how MS Dhoni has been for CSK, even Rohit Sharma for Mumbai Indians. And I think, like you said, you have a very strong set of players. I think when you look at all their batters, and their bowlers as well, they're all very strong in their own assets, and they're very different kinds of players. You don't see a repeat of too many players, but you also see them very versatile. We saw someone like a Kane Williamson. In the Hyderabad outfit, kind of confined to one specific role, and then when he comes to GT, takes a completely different role, but is able to revert back to what he does best as well. So you have that kind of flexibility within there, and I think the purchase of Shah Rukh Khan is a huge benefit for them. A big power player, someone who can really knock things up in the late overs. Um, and as well, like you said, a phenomenal bowler like Rashid Khan. You have a decent bowling unit as well. I think what will hurt them really big time is the loss of Mohammad Shami, someone who's phenomenal, who has been phenomenal for them. Someone who you tend to underestimate a lot of times, and that's what gets the better of you. Yeah, Viren, what do you think is your best outfit? 100% their best shot
Um,
going as a playing 11.
Yep. So I think my playing 11, and this was something I just penned down just before this episode got underway. For me, you'll have Shubman Gill opening with Ridhiman Saha. I think just as much as you'll miss Hardik Pandya in this team, I also think Gujarat will kind of miss the services of um, a flamboyant overseas opener to partner up with Shubman Gill. I think having Ridhiman Saha was was not my best resort or my go-to, but I knew I have a stacked middle order, which I'll get to in a moment. So I needed to have a Ridhiman Saha in there. Ridhiman Saha is always underrated in IPLs. He always tends to perform and always does the job for GT, for SRH, for Punjab in that final in 2015 when he scored a century against KKR. So you have someone with IPL pedigree in Ridhiman Saha. Sai Sudarshan, for me, batting at number three, had a brilliant knock in that IPL final last year. For me, he's someone to look out for, perhaps even for the Young Player of the Year award. I think this is going to be an important year for Sai Sudarshan, the batsman. Number four for me is a toss up between Vijay Shankar and Shah Rukh Khan. You stated this brilliantly earlier, where Shah Rukh Khan tends to perform better as a finisher, and he's a finisher who's proven himself for Punjab in previous seasons. But with this stacked batting lineup that I'm going to get to, with the finishers that they have, I think it'll be a toss up between Shankar or Shah Rukh Khan for Ashish Nehra and the GT think tank. You have David Miller at number five, and then someone to watch out for this season as we say hi to the cricket analyst founder Zora, who joins us.
Hi guys,
At
how are you guys doing?
very, very good. Very good. And let you pitch in as well after this. At number six,
Sure.
I have Omarzai. Um, Omarzai, for me, has been Afghanistan's go to over the past 6 to 8 months. A brilliant limited overs record. And as Harshabog said on Crickbuzz the other day, he might be a like for like when it comes to finding a replacement for Pandya. He can get the 4 overs in, can bowl during the power play, and is also a brilliant batsman. You have the GT Wiz Rahul Tewati at number seven, Rashid Khan obviously at eight, Mohit Sharma, who had a revival of sorts last year, at number nine. Then a toss up between Kartik Tyagi and Sai Kishore. If you want a pacer, you have Tyagi. If you want a left arm spinner, you have Sai Kishore in there. And number 11, purely because you've spent so much money on him, Spencer Johnson at number 11 for me for that fourth overseas slot. But there's something that I have to state here. IPL franchises have tended to spend big on big bash league stars, and some of these stars haven't worked out in the past. I'm talking about players like Nathan Coulter, talking about the likes of Jai Richardson, Nathan Ellis, for example, who've never really performed at the IPL. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how Spencer Johnson does. But if he fails early on, you have a Noor Ahmed, Rashid spin twin from Afghanistan, who could come in.
So Zora, since you're joining us here, I'm going to put you on the fire quickly. Um, do you have any changes you think you'd make to Viren's 11, or do you have a complete different thing here?
No, I think my 11 is pretty much similar to what Viren discussed. Actually, I feel like the fast bowling section is still a little weak
Yeah.
because I think we often talk about Hardik Pandya's batting, finishing abilities. He batted at number four, took it deep, captained really well, but a lot of us forget that he also bowled with the new ball and bowled during crucial times and picked up some very crucial wickets during the power play and even after. So not having Hardik Pandya as the bowler, I feel like is really making this side, the fast bowling side, a little weak. So I think depending on the conditions, the spinners with Noor, Rashid, Sai, Jayant Yadav, I think is in the squad as well. So they still look decent in their spin attack, but when it comes to fast bowling, I'm not quite sure how much they will be able to attack with Mohit and Karthik Tyagi and even Spencer playing his first IPL, probably first time in India as well. I'm not sure what kind of performances they would be able to deliver. So I think a lot of pressure on the batting unit, David Miller especially, with all the experience that he has. But overall, I think a team that will reach the playoffs for sure. Very well balanced overall.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with both of your sentiments. I think for me, what would be interesting to see is how they play around with their batting options throughout the season, because you have phenomenal batters who will inevitably get left on the bench. Likes like Viren and I were just discussing earlier, Kane Williams and Matthew Wade, World Cup winners, but there is no guarantee of them playing throughout the season, but we know that they have a lot to offer. So it'll be interesting to see how Gujarat Titans kind of uses them. And I think it'll be, in a way, be a litmus test to go forward into the next mega auction to see what kind of players they want to retain and who they want to discuss, especially since these are players who are going on the older side as things go on. Not players who may not necessarily be at the peak of their form. They may be on the peak or just waning off. So it's something to be considered about. And Zora already gave his predictions for how Gujarat Titans will fare throughout the seasons with them reaching the playoffs. Viren, what do you think will be the fate of the Gujarat Titans here?
Um, if Shubman Gill can balance both the burden of captaincy and opening the batting to make a claim for himself for the Indian World T20 squad, I think they will reach the playoff. I agree with Zora. I think they're too good of a side to miss out. They have too many match winners in there, the likes of Rashid Khan, Shubman Gill, even Indian players like Rahul Tewatia who can change a game on his own. And then if they get the likes of David Miller firing as well, I think that is formidable outfit. But I agree with what you said early on, Harry. I think the one player they'll miss out on is Mohammad Shami. Um, you can ask any Sri Lankan cricket fan, and we still have nightmares about Mohammad Shami. But I think GT will miss his services, and it'll be interesting to see if someone like Mohit Sharma can step up a bit more um, and fill in that void.
Yeah. So for me personally, I do see Gujarat Titans getting to the playoffs. Um, Beyond that, it's tough to say because I think if there's one thing the IPL has proven is once you get to the knockout stage, it's anyone's game. But I think we're all in agreement that Gujarat Titans, despite a slightly weaker fast bowling attack, will most likely get to that playoff point. And we talked about Rajasthan. We talked about Gujarat just now, one of the other new teams, and we'll talk about the other new team, the Lucknow Super Giants. So I'll start with you, Zora. So just looking through this squad over here, you have the batters, the all-rounders over here. What do you see as key strengths and maybe weaknesses that they may want to address throughout this entire season?
Yeah, I mean, Lucknow Super Giants on paper look like a very, very strong team. They have a good mix of experience. They picked up some very good young players as well from the Under 19 World Cup that recently took place. So they have a good balance of a squad. It's just getting the game plan right. I feel like a lot of the times, and just delivering that finishing touch that is required by teams, which they missed out several times last year. So I feel like overall on paper they've got a decent team. If they can figure out which position to play each player, maximize them in their roles, and get a good game plan, in order. I feel like they're one team to definitely look out for this year, and probably, if they have some players who can get back in form, they're going to be a very dangerous side.
Viren, anything you want to add to that?
I agree with Zora. I think there's a lot of firepower in their batting line, but one of their core weaknesses that stands out for me now is their bowling attack. And when I was trying to form their best 11, I realized when it comes to locals or their local bowling options, they're relying on quite a few uncapped players. They're relying on the likes of Yash Thakur, Mohsin Khan, Shivam Mavi, um, who don't have that international pedigree just yet. And even if you look at their overseas bowling contingent, they'll miss Mark Wood. Mark Wood is going to be a huge miss. Um, and I think, if, and when it comes to that fast bowling option, you have Naveen ul Haq, who has a lot of franchise experience, but isn't very consistent. I think if I recall correctly, he also left the PSL midway through and hasn't seen out most of his commitments. I even recall him leaving at various points of the LPL over the past few years. Um, so that's a concern. And I love the feel good factor about the Shama Joseph pick. I like how you pick out a fast bowler who was brilliant in a test match at Gabba and say, yeah, he's going to do well in the IPL. But We'll see how that works out. Um, that is my concern for Lucknow. It's their bowling attack, and I'm going to make a bold prediction now. And to whoever ends up being recruited by the Ion Cricket to create these shorts for us, we can capture a shot of me saying this later on. I think Lucknow are going to struggle this year. I think I don't see them in the playoffs unless one of these local bowlers becomes a hero, unless Ravi Bishnoi takes on the role of being that leader amongst the bowling attack. If a Shivam Marvi now delivers after his move from KKR, it needs something to click on the bowling side of things. It's going to be interesting now with Padikkal coming in to see where Rahul sees himself batting. I think Quinton de Kock is an obvious pick as an opener. There has been talk in the camp that Padikkal might open with Rahul batting at number three. But I'll tell you something that we haven't spoken of just yet, and that's the role of like a coach or backroom staff. Justin Langer comes in to this LSG setup, and Justin Langer is a proven winner as a coach. For many of us who watch the Test, those documentaries surrounding Australian cricket, we know how much of a taskmaster Justin Langer is. So if he can rally around these troops and get them to click, um, it's going to be interesting to see how they do. But I still think that bowling attack is one of the weakest in this year's IPL. And Rukaya comments saying Padikkal opening, Rahul should bat at four. Interesting call there, and it'll be interesting to see how Rahul plays as well. And an interesting thing here, Hari, is what these Indian players do, because all of them are fighting for a place in the Indian World T20 squad as well, right? So how many of them want to play out of position? Looking ahead to the World Cup as well is going to be interesting.
I think both of you have hit it on the head here about you know how you've analyzed these squads. I think while from a batting perspective they do seem pretty safe in terms of the options they have, the bowling leaves a lot to be desired from. They'll definitely miss the likes of Mark Wood, someone who is a world class talent in terms of leading not just a fast bowling unit but a bowling unit as well. Someone who gets in early, sets that tone right from ball one, that puts the opponent on their back foot. Um, it's going to be a definite miss. I think it'll be an opportunity for Ravi Bishnoi to step up as well, prove himself, even despite his age, to be quite a strong leader within that bowling contingent. But one thing also, while it is quite a formidable batting lineup, I don't I don't see that X factor kind of player within this batting lineup, because when you look at a lot of teams, you have very strong options and you have one dynamo player who can come and change things up, just in the flick of a wrist. But I think that's kind of missing. You do have someone like a Nicholas Puran who could do that, but unfortunately hasn't been the most successful in doing it consistently. I think one thing to look forward for is perhaps is better batting conditions for them this time around. I think last year they really struggled with the surface. They frankly couldn't do much with, and you saw a very ironic stat where they perform better in terms of batting outside their home pitch rather than inside. And it's quite a peculiar thing to see. They have a lot of options to play around with. Deepak Huda coming back into form in the domestic circuit is going to be a good welcome for them. And I think, like you said, I think their ideal batting opening partnership will be Quinton de Kock and Devdutt Padikkal, two left-handers. But I think, two guys who can do phenomenal. I hope Devdutt Padikkal kind of lets loose here in this role. Justin Langer gives him that kind of freedom to go out there and play his shots, because like we saw in his first season, his breakout season with RCB, he is capable of very powerful shots, very high strike rates. But I think for some reason or other, he's been a bit subdued the past few seasons. In terms of playing 11s, Viren, do you want to take it over?
Yeah, sure. I think LSG is playing 11 for me. And with what Rook just said, I have Padikkal opening with QDK. Maybe someone like I want to pinch it at number three, but I don't want someone. I don't want to risk like a Puran coming in very early and losing his wicket. So maybe like a Deepak Huda at number three, perhaps. Rahul at four, Puran at five, Stoinis at six, Pandya, Krunal Pandya at seven, Ravi Bishnoi at eight. It's going to be a big season for Ravi Bishnoi. I know you have Amit Mishra in the dugout, but I don't see Mishra getting too much game time. I don't think there's space to have two leg spinners, unless Lucknow provides a pitch that is uh, a square turn. I think Ravi Bishnoi stands out as a spinner there. Shivam Mavi, and then a toss up between Naveen ul Haq and Shamar Joseph for that fourth overseas spot. If you base it off T20 experience and T20 pedigree, I think Naveen ul Haq deserves the call up. And then for that final Indian pacer option, it's a toss up for me between Yash Thakur and Mohsin Khan. One a left arm and the other right armer. So depending on combinations, a toss up between them. But I agree with you, Harry. I don't think there's enough proven pedigree both in that bowling attack or like proven firepower in that batting lineup, except maybe a Marcus Stoinis that'll send shivers down the spines of the opposition. Quick question to you, Hari, and to you, Zora, from Ruka. Do you think letting go of Avesh was a good move? Who is going to do that role now?
Zure, you want to take over? You want me to go ahead first?
I think it's better if you go on, but I just wanted to, before we answer this question, I just wanted to just add on to the playing 11 that Viren just shared with us. So I feel like there's a few other interesting things that they could experiment with Discord, and they will have to, I mean, considering some of the new players in their team. Um, looking at, I don't see KL Rahul bat at number four. Especially, I mean, if you look at the last few years, he's been the most successful IPL batter, and he's been doing it at the opening slot. So it will be a very risky move to move him from there, especially when Padikkal has been playing in the middle order last year. He's got some experience. So perhaps he's more suited or adjusted to that role compared to a KL Rahul in a T20 game. With that said, they have several players for the same position. Ayush Badoni should be batting up. Marcus Stoinis actually bats very up during the Big Bash. So they could try a few things to, bring in that explosive power. They have some good finishers. My only thing is I don't see. I would rather looking at the PSL and look at how DJ. Is DJ in the squad? Willie, David Willie in the squad.
Yeah, he is.
He is.
Looking at the PSL that went, looking at his performance in the last I think he was really good with the new ball, and he was also used as that pinch hitter who came up and who can occasionally hit a few runs. When you have a wicket keeper in Quinton de Kock, in KL Rahul as well, maybe looking at how inconsistent Nicholas Puran is at times, maybe bringing in to strengthen that fast bowling unit or that all-rounder side, having David coming over there in the middle along with some of the local fast bowlers. There's also a very good left arm spinner that they brought in. He has done really well, and he could be a surprise package this year. I can't pronounce his name, Miran or something like that. He could be a surprise as well. So I think if they plan it out tactfully, get their game, like I said at the beginning as well, if they can get the um, combination right, get the game plan right, use the right players at the right situation at the right times, they could actually bring out a surprise with some of the new players in, use them in different positions, and take some bold moves. I mean, if that means maybe not playing Puran, then that they might have to try that out. I mean, playing three wicket keepers in a batting in a playing 11 is a little tough at times. I mean, I feel like with this team, as the season goes, you will see a lot of experience and a lot of changes coming through. Whether even if they're not winning games, losing definitely they'll make changes. But even if they're winning games, I feel like you'll see a lot of players come and go from the squad, tried out and trying in different positions. You'll see a Badoni one down at times, and then suddenly he's put at number six to bat at some games. So you will see a lot of changes and experiments coming up. Um, but I feel like if they can just, kind of get that game plan right and the right place for the right job, I think they could be a potentially, dangerous team to reckon with this IPL.
That's a brilliant bunch of takes from Zora over there. I think one thing I disagree though with is Rahul not being able to bat in the middle order. I think looking at him throughout the past 5 years or so, I think even beyond that, if there's one thing he's proven, that he's one of the most versatile batsmen going around in the international circuit, and someone who's able to play the proper test cricketing shots and also your reverse sweeps, your lap shots as well. So I think um, perhaps the burden of being up the order, leading a side, and taking responsibility in quite fragile batting lineups throughout the last few years has made him more conservative in his approach to batting. And while he has seen statistical success with it, I don't think as a player he might be most satisfied with his performance. I think sending him down the order gives him that freedom to go out there and not have to worry about setting things up for the rest of the innings, but playing his shots freely and taking advantage of the opposition. I think you brought up a very interesting point about them have their inexperience and kind of oddball of talent being a potential strength. And what it kind of reminded me of was 2018 Delhi Daredevils. Actually, you had a very young squad, a very oddball set of players. Players you hadn't heard much of. A lot of people who hadn't had international experience yet, but towards that latter half of the tournament, they were proving to be a very deadly side that could pull off a lot of interesting results and performances out there. So while I do see there being potential, I don't think this season will see them going too high up. I don't think they'll perform too badly either. I think they'll be somewhere upper middle of the table, just missing out on the playoff spot for them. And Viren, Zora, your thoughts on their perform where they'd end up on the points table?
I'm going. I started off being quite bold, and I'll continue being bold. I think they finished ninth or 10th in my books.
I feel like they will be in contention for playoffs till the very end. I mean, they could either make that fourth spot or they will just lose out. I don't see them finishing right at the bottom. Um, but I think it totally depends. I don't know what Langer has in store for us.
Langer is quite the interesting coach. Produced some interesting, create some interesting cricket with Cricket Australia. Now let's see what he has up for Lucknow Super Giants. And now moving from the new teams, let's go to a bit of IPL heritage. In a team that was once extremely successful in their first season and then hasn't really seen that touch of gold yet. Hopefully, for them, it's sometime this time, and that is the Rajasthan Royals, headed by a great Sri Lankan captain, someone who a lot of Sri Lankan fans will be um, happy to see in the dugouts, Kumar Sangakkara. Viren, being the Sri Lankan fan you are, want to take us through the squad and your strengths and weaknesses as you see them?
A lot of strengths, not many weaknesses in my books. And I think the one thing I like about RR, ever since Sangha um, came came to RR as their director of cricket, is there's a lot of consistency, in their squads across the seasons, and there's a very strong core. You're talking about arguably the best Indian spinners playing together in the same team. R. Ashwin and Yuzvendra Chahal. Having the both of them in there means you have 40%, sorry, 40% of your overs out of the way. Um, and they've got a very good core of both local and international players. You're looking at Butler, Jaiswal, Sanju Samson, Hetmeyer, even players like Rian Parag who have come of age at Rajasthan Royals. And then you've got Trent Bolt, Adam Zampa. Um, and these players have been in the franchise for a couple of years now. They know what RR is all about. They reached the final in 2022, came agonizingly close last year. And I think it's important for them to go into this season. And most teams, you look at football teams or cricket teams as franchises, they have 3 or 4 year plans. And I think this is going to be the peak of RR in terms of that short slash intermediate plan, that the short run slash intermediate plan that Sangakkara had when he came to the helm. And you have so many underrated players who might not have much game time this season, but form a very strong bench. Players like TKC, who has been prolific in these conditions. You're talking about prolific seasons in the LPL. Didn't do too well in the Pakistan Super League this year, but had pedigree before. Played in this part of the world, in the Abu Dhabi T10 leagues, etc. And who will form a part of a very strong bench for Sangakkara to work with. People like Donovan Ferreira, who not too many people have heard about, but is making a claim for himself in the South African T20 setup. Someone who we need to keep an eye out on as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how Rajasthan uh, works their way through the season, and I think it's going to be also interesting to see who Sangakkara sticks with as his four overseas players. And this is, I think, prime time for me to bring Rook in. Rook,
Made it in time,
I'm
just in time
assuming
for the party to start.
exactly. I'm assuming players like Butler and Bolt are kind of guaranteed picks in your best Rajasthan 11. My question for you is: you've spent a lot of money on Rovman Powell. You're expecting him to play that role as a finisher. Do you see him being a guaranteed pick for RR this season?
I mean, I guess it really depends on the conditions as well, right? Since we have spent a lot of money on them, I would probably give him a bit of a license and say, you know what, play him for a few games and see if he clicks. Because if he does, then he can be probably one of the most destructive batsmen in the T20 circuit. We've seen what some of these West Indians can do. We've seen what Rovman Powell himself can do. And he's been playing very well in good form in leagues across the world. So I think maybe try him out for a few seasons. For a few games. Give him that license to strike and see how it clicks. And if it doesn't, they always have a lot of overseas players in the bank. So why not? I would probably play him maybe as like a floater with him. 4, 5, and 6 would probably be a floating position between Dhruv Jurel, Hetmeyer, and Powell, depending on what the game situation is. If there's only a few overs left and you just want somebody to go out there and strike a clean ball, I'd probably send in Powell. Whereas if there's a few overs left and you need somebody to kind of build an innings and then strike at the end of it, I would probably send in a Dhruv Jurel, who we have seen what he did in the Test series and what he's capable of. So
Great takes there from Rukaya. Zora, anything you to add before I add my few cents to this RR squad?
I feel like they have the squad to win you a championship. I mean, look at their batting. They have got three power hitters. Hetmeyer, Powell, Jurel is becoming one as well. You have Samson. You have look at the attackers you have at the top with Jaiswal, and look at Jaiswal's form and Josh Butler. So the batting is like incredible. Spin department. You have your stalwarts Chahal, Ashwin, Zampa on the bench, I guess. So you've got some good option. I think it's the trend with IPL. The fast bowling departments of all teams are looking slightly weak, but that it also means it's an even contest. That's where I think this IPL is about. Like whoever is able to um, sort of have a balanced fast bowling attack, play the right bowlers who are in good form and good rhythm that can do the job in those 4 overs, will seem to, um, take you to that championship. And I feel like with the experience some of these guys have in Bolt, Kuldeep Sen, Navdeep Saini, um, they're all 140 around bowlers. So hopefully, they get Rajasthan through with the bowling.
Brilliantly said there. I think adding to the fast bowling debate, I think of the teams we've seen so far, I think I'd say personally that Rajasthan Royals seems the most strong. For no other reason than that they have a good amount of variety in there and good choices within their fast bowlers. You have people who can do different sorts of role with different skill sets. You have someone like a Trent Bolt, magical with the new ball, and someone who's also proved himself in the debt. You have Avesh Khan, a sensation of the last few years, an ultra paceman with Navdeep Saini, a crafty, slow ball bowler with Sandeep Sharma. Of course, the loss of Prasidh Krishna will impact them, but I see a very decent fast bowling unit there that can achieve quite a lot, supported by three actually fantastic spinners in Adam Zampa, Yuzvendra Chahal, and Ravichandran Ashwin. I think also another important fact about Rajasthan Royals is they are known to develop good fast bowlers within them. They have a very strong fast bowling development program within them, and they have created good homegrown talents in the past. And we might just be in for a surprise for them from this year as well. Like we said, a very stacked batting lineup as well. But for me, what really gives them that edge is, like I said, that varied bowling unit. They have a lot of options to go through, a lot of skilled options, a lot of options that have been tested in the past. And you have young flair as well. So I think for me, I'm jumping the gun ahead here with my predictions, but I see them securing quite a strong spot in the IPL playoffs, and largely it's going to be in part of their bowling unit. So with that, let's go to the Kai over here. What do you think is the ideal 11 for Rajasthan Royals here and Sanga's meant to go forward with?
So I think, adding to your point about the bowling, I definitely agree. It's one of the strongest bowling lineups on paper in all of the IPL squads, in my opinion. But I feel like what's really going to take Rajasthan from a strong team to a formidable team that is in true contention for the trophy is obviously going to be the form of players of the likes of Josh Butler, Sanju Samson, and Chahal and Ashwin, because those are their match winners, right? They have a very strong, well-oiled unit. We know Sanga's strategies. He has obviously a play for every single situation. But at the end of the day, it's over the years, it's been these four players who have been carrying them, and these four players really need to kick. And we know on a day when Butler is in form, there's no team in the world that can stand, or no bowler in the world that can stand up against him. So moving on to the 11, I'd open with Jaiswal and Butler. It's worked for them year on. So why change that? Sanju at 3, again, that style of him coming in and his fearlessness, not worrying about personal achievements or scorecard pressure, and just scoring freely. I would bring in a Dhruv Jurel at number 4, but like I said earlier, depending on the game situation, 4, 5, and 6 would probably be floating, and that's a captain and coach's call to make send in. But as a starting 11, I'd say Jurel at 4, Hetmaya at 5, Powell at 6, and then the Rian Parag at 7. I think this is probably going to be the last year that Rajasthan Royal give him some slack, and hopefully he'll come true, because apparently he's been doing very well in the domestic circuit. I was just checking out the scores that he's been putting up, and he's been in quite good form. So if at all this is the year that he needs to show and prove himself and prove all the trust that Rajasthan have put in him over the years. And then you have Ashwin at 8, Avesh, Trent Bolt, and Chahal. So that'll be my playing level.
Quite a strong 11 there.
Sorry Harry, if their batting gets to Rian Parag, then they're in trouble for sure. And I feel like that floater position, they might experiment with Rian Parag coming at number 4 at times, just to give him that season, give him a good chance. But other than that, I think this is a very, very strong team, and I agree with the playing 11 Rook has put forward.
Viren, any thoughts on the 11s, or your maybe
That
a
was exactly
dramatic change?
my 11. That was exactly my 11 as well. Before we move on, Navindu, thanks for joining us on the Ion Cricket. We'll be covering Punjab Kings tomorrow. After this, we'll be covering Mumbai and CSK. That'll wrap up our first show today, covering the IPL, and then we'll cover Punjab and 4 other teams tomorrow. But yeah, as Rook and Zara said, that is my ideal 11 as well. I think Rian Parag's role, you only pick him because there's no one else to pick for that number 7 slot. And I think that is the plight of Parag over the course of his RR career thus far. I think this has to be the season where something clicks for him. My question becomes, if things don't click for Rian Parag at number 7, who do we then go to? And I have a few permutations that I'm thinking about now. Trent Bolt has had a topsy-turvy run in franchise leagues over the past year. If Trent Bolt doesn't fire, I think you can rely on someone. So I think Avesh Khan fits in perfectly. I think LSG let go of a real weapon here, and RR won't feel Prasidh Krishna's void this year. I think Avesh Khan fills in those boots quite well. I think there is an avenue through which you can, if you let go of Trent Bolt, you can prop Ashwin up to batting at number 7. I think he's more than reliable to bat at number 7 if needed. And then have a combination where you have Avesh Khan at 8, Sandeep Sharma at 9, Chahel at 10, and Zampa at 11. And I think go all guns blazing on your spin department, knowing that you have someone like a Rovman Powell who can chip in with the ball if required as well. Uh, so I think that you have those combinations available to Sangakkara this year, and I think that over reliance on Trent Bolt will kind of water down as the season progresses.
No, I don't. I just to add into it, I don't see them dropping Trent Bolt because I think that's probably the leader of the pack. But I think Rangers gave us a good idea where dropping Rian because you don't really need Rian Parag when you have so many batters, especially when Ashwin can bat as well. This could be a good way to bring in like an extra fast bowler or an extra new bowler to tag
Yeah.
along bowl
I
with
was actually
Sandeep
going to
Sharma
suggest
or
bringing in
Saini.
some like a Kuldeep Sen because they've also got
Yeah,
Kuldeep Sen, and we saw them play him quite often last year,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he did a pretty good job. I remember there was it the 19th or 20th over that he bowled and held his nerve
And
to win the game
and
for
you know
Rajasthan.
and I feel like they will need to have an extra fast bowler in the squad because looking at Chahal and Ashwin, they're very lethal when they get those pitches. On certain pitches, they can go for a lot of runs, and if that happens, having that extra fast bowler would really help them. Kind of reduce that run rate that from the other team. So I feel like definitely if they can get a fast bowler in place of Rian, if they can make that move, I would definitely look to drop Parag or bring an extra fast bowler in unless the batting is flopping a lot in the early season.
So that's a very comprehensive discussion about teams we had here with RR. So I already gave my clear prediction that they secure a very solid spot in that playoffs. I want to hear the rest of you guys. What do you think is RR's fate this year in terms of where they stand on the table? Let's go with you, Viren, first.
I see them finishing in the top two. I think I think this is the season where everything starts clicking for them. They had a brilliant run 2 years ago. I see them replicating that run this year, or going one step further and winning it if everything clicks. But yes, I think that the only cause for concern is if something, as Zora and Rook outlined, if things don't click for Ashwin and Chahel together, if bowling in tandem doesn't work for them together this season, they could be in real trouble. But provided that doesn't happen, and if the best playing 11 that we've discussed plays to their potential, I think they have enough match winners in there to take them deep.
Zora?
As long as they win the toss and ball first, I think they should be good to claim that number one position.
And Rook, wrap things up on RR.
Yeah, I mean, they're on paper. I think they're one of the most formidable sides. There's no doubt about it. There's just one problem that I've seen over the years with Rajasthan, and the fact that during the group stages they just do so well. But like India in any World Cup tournament, Rajasthan in every IPL seem to come to the eliminators and the knockout stages and find that one game where they decide to choke, which kind of ruins their entire season for them. But I hope that doesn't happen this year because I really think they deserve to win a championship, and I really hope they do.
Yeah, a very positive team. I think, at least as far as their social media admins lead us on to believe a very positive dressing room culture. I'm not sure we can say as much about the same as the next team we're going to talk about here, given recent events, and that will be the Mumbai Indians, one of the most successful teams in the IPL. Had somewhat of a downward slump the last 2 years, but looks like something has been brewing in the chambers of that MI think tank. Um, we're missing our resident MI super fan. But Zora, if you want to take us through this MI squad over here.
Harry, sorry, I can't see the screen properly, so it's better if Viren or Rook can take over the squad.
Sure, I'll step in. It's nice having a bit of Sri Lankan blue in the Mumbai Indians back again with Lasith Malinga coming in as their bowling coach. And I'm quite confident in saying there has been a lot of Lasith Malinga's influence in their auction picks as well. I wouldn't have spent nearly 9 crore on two Sri Lankan bowlers in Tushara and Madhushankar. It's unfortunate that Madhushankar is ruled out of the IPL. I was looking forward to seeing him thrive at the Wankhede. But I honestly think we have a very solid MI team this year. And we spoke about the pace bowling attack. In my playing 11, I think you have the best pace bowling attack in the IPL. You have Jasprit Bumrah, Nuan Tushara, who has now become my favorite over the past month or so, ever since his heroics against Bangladesh, and Gerald Coetzee, all in my playing 11. That's a stacked pace bowling attack, and that's some. And I think something is finally clicking for Mumbai. I think they've realized that the Jofra Archer bandwagon is something that they should heavily retract from immediately, following a huge blunder at the auction a couple of years ago. But I think they've got it nailed, and I think you have good pace bowlers even on the bench. Looking at the likes of Luke Wood and Quena Mafaka. Um, Mafaka, I think was ultimately the find for South Africa, not just in last year's in this year's under 19 World Cup, but also played the under 19 World Cup 2 years ago. A left-arm pacer who can clock 145, 150 with ease. And it's nice to see Mumbai giving youngsters like Mafaka, who's replacing another youngster in Dilshan Madhushankar, an opportunity on the bigger stage. And I think sorry, Harry, for going on a tangent here, but this is where MI as a franchise has been prolific last year. Mahela has taken on the role of the head of their global development slash franchise program. Nuan Tushara was the best bowler for MI Cape Town in South Africa. Mafaka was given a run for MI Cape Town in South Africa, and now within this MI family, they just keep bringing players in based on their network by going into other leagues, etc. So you have Nuan Tushara, who played for both MI Cape Town plus the MI franchise in the Abu Dhabi T10 league as well, who now is a part and parcel of the MI family already. So it's easy for them to transition into this IPL outfit. Looking at their batting lineup, I think a lot again will depend on Rohit Sharma, Sky, and Ishan Kishan. But Tilak Verma came of age last year, and I think that's a strong Indian batting lineup in terms of a core as well.
Yeah, I think I'd echo your sentiments in saying that they have a very resourceful and kind of utility-based fast bowling, and I think overall squad, because I think, like you rightfully said, their global system, as you know, has already shown the great benefits it can create. I think you've almost created a football-esque system where you have academies and you funnel players through that. Players who are already used to the team cultures, the way they play, and by the time they make their big debut for the big side, they already are accustomed to how this side works, how the dynamics work within, and it's a great resource to have in terms of funneling players. And I think another thing this will help them greatly with is, say, midway through, you have perhaps, you know, unfortunately, maybe a Jasprit Bumrah gets injured for a few games, you can find other players to replace him quite well. Or you can tweak your configurations pretty easily. I think, like we said, you have a very strong batting lineup that has been shaping up, the likes of Ishan Kishan, Rohit Sharma, Hardik Pandya coming back in the mix for MI as well, and quite a good set of all-rounders. I think the only one that slightly concerns me is Mohammad Nabi, uh, a veteran of the franchise and T20 cricket circuit, but I feel like he is losing what he was always known great for. I think he is over that bell curve of your peak. But let's see. MI does tend to have interesting experiments. You saw a washed-out Piyush Chawla a few seasons ago at CSK come to MI and create some momentum there. Rook, what are your thoughts on this squad? Strengths and weaknesses.
So honestly, I feel like the fate of Mumbai this year is going to really, really depend on how Hardik Pandya brings his team together. There's been drama surrounding this entire move on, Hardik Pandya situation, and obviously there's rumored tensions in the dressing room with the likes of Jasprit Bumrah, Sky, kind of overlooked when it came to the captaincy role being passed down. And Rohit himself, we don't know what the dynamic was there, whether he asked to step down from the captaincy, or whether it was So all of these dynamics is going to be playing in the dressing room, and how Hardik manages it and brings this team together is, I think, what will decide the fate of Mumbai for this season. On paper, the squad that they have, I think, formidable, probably the best top six in IPL at the moment from all the squads. Your top six up solid. They're not going to change it unless there is any injury concern. Um, and the slight concern that I do have with this squad, one is the spin bowling department, because I feel like, yes, Piyush Chawla, veteran, wily old fox, but um, he's not getting any younger, and we don't know, how he's gonna, because he's not really playing too much in international circuit at the moment. So we don't know what his form is going to be like, how he's going to turn up, and what he's going to put out. So the backup that you have for Piyush Chawla is inexperienced. They've got Kumar Kartikeya, even with their all-rounders. They've invested a lot of money in Romario Shepherd. So my call is that they're going to probably give him an edge over Nabi in the playing 11. And Lambi is probably that, backup experienced option for when the going gets tough and they want to make some changes in the squad. But yeah, spin bowling may be a slight concern, but I echo the thoughts of Viren and Zora when it comes to the fast bowling attack.
Zora, anything you'd like to cap us off in terms of a strength and
I
weakness
think
discussion?
I think you guys have pretty much covered everything. Yes, Piyush Sharma, I think his name was thrown around a lot. Uh, I feel like they might use Shivalik Sharma over here, who had a good season. He's a upcoming leg spinner, so maybe they might give him a few games to check him out. Um, I'm not sure if I don't know if he's in the squad or not, but I remember they picked Shivalik, so that could be the future plans that they have of phasing him out and bringing him in. The other thing is, I feel like they should play specialist fast bowlers because they have so many good overseas fast bowlers. Instead of playing all rounders or spinners, they should just give give Bumrah that cushion with Gerald and the others, and just play specialist fast bowlers because the Indian batting lineup is so solid. They don't need any overseas specialists in there, or they don't even need all rounders. And they have enough finishers as well with Hardik Pandya coming back in now. And I feel like all they should do is just cushion. My only request is to play Arjun Tendulkar somehow. So we know what this guy is capable of. Give him a proper season instead of giving him a few chances here and there. Just play the guy, man, because either he's here because he's talented, he's good, but I mean, let's give him a season to really, see how he does. Not like give him 2 overs, then stop bowling him. Not, just using him bits and pieces just to safeguard him, as if someone has told Ambani to keep him in the squad. So I feel like they should just give him an entire season to see because there are such good upcoming fast bowlers and all rounders. Just recently from the Under 19 World Cup that impressed me more than what I've seen of Arjun Tendulkar so far at 125 kilometers per hour, batting at number 8. So I want to see what this mystery is about. Let's just forget about his last name. Like, let's take his last name, who his father was completely out of the equation. I just want to know what he's capable of doing. In the 4 overs that he's given and given a proper role in the team, rather than using him as bits and pieces where he comes and bowls 2 overs and then you're struggling and you're getting Vadera and the other guys to squeeze in with 2 overs of off spin to cover up. So I just whatever they do, just give him a proper season. Don't keep him on the bench this year because if he's there just to warm the bench, I feel it's like his third, fourth year now, and there's so many other youngsters. Kumar Kartikeya have come in, so many other players have come in. Straight away got into the playing 11, and this poor chap hasn't got a proper season to, um, you know, showcase his talents. Even Avesh Khan, he started pretty, slow, and now he really, made his way through. So I just hope they play him and give him a proper chance in the playing 11.
Um,
So I think
as
we know for a fact that Zora probably has Arjun Tendulkar in his playing 11. Um, with Viren finishing what he said, you want to go and continue?
Yeah, as a few people like Sony Razdan once said, nepotism is the natural thing that happens across many fields. So, having Arjun Tendulkar in there should be fitting. And I completely agree with Zora. I mean, you've had a bench warmer in there for 3 or 4 seasons now. I think it's high time you give him a bit of a run. But I also agree with something else Zora said. I think MI can afford to take a risk and not even have a number 7 overseas pick and go with 3 overseas fast bowlers if they want to. If they want to throw in Nuan Tushara, Gerald Coetzee, and even someone like Luke Wood in there for to give Jasprit Bumrah that extra cushion they can. So it's going to be interesting to see how Mark Boucher and Pandya um, handle this MI outfit, and I hope they do better uh, than their performance in the press conference, where it was clear that Mark Boucher was getting quite riled up whenever there were questions posed about the captaincy change. But yeah, as Rook correctly said, there is if there are any murmurs in the dressing room about the captaincy's change, etc., we've seen it happen in IPLs in the past where it can reflect on performances in the field. We saw that happening with Ravindra Jadeja's short stint as CSK captain. And for Pandya's sake, I hope his unblemished record of captaincy, reaching 2 consecutive finals, doesn't end there because of dressing room antics.
Quickly wrap up this session on MI and with Rukaya. What is your ideal 11 here, and where do you think this 11 will take the points table?
Okay, so I think, like I said, top 6 is kind of solid. You've got Rohit Ishan opening, Sky at 3, Tilak at 4, Hardik 5, and Tim David at 6. And there you've got one overseas player. They spend a lot on him, so I think they're going to start off with Romario Shepherd in their playing 11. I'd play him at 7. And then starting the fast bowling attack with Gerald Coetzee, and we've seen that he can be handful with the bat as well, so that number 8 spot would be ideal for him. Unfortunately, Berendorf and Madhushankar both have withdrawn from the tournament, so I think that gives Nuan Tushara a leeway into the squad, and he'd be the third fast bowler along with Bumrah, and then you'd have Piyush Chawla at 11. I'd start off with Chawla, give him a shot, see the form that he's in, and then explore bringing in someone like Kumar Kartikeya towards the middle of the season and give him a few games as well.
Quite a formidable 11. Zora, any changes you'd make there, or you would go with the same thing?
Zora will have something to say about what my yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would pretty much have the same things. The team looks, whatever Rook mentioned, looks like what their plan is and how they're thinking and type of 11. But I'm thinking of it from another point of view as well. I would like to see some of these fast bowlers in action. They pick Tushar, give him a chance, a game early on the season to see how he's doing. Luke Wood is there as well, and this South African 17-year-old youngster in there as well. So, depending on the form there and the rhythm, then with Bumrah, you have Hardik Pandya who will be bowling or sharing the new ball, and then you have Gerald for sure. Having that one extra fast ball, especially when your spinners are of not that top quality, might actually be a little smart than playing an all-rounder in the middle with the 120 km/h speed. Having that extra pace at 140 plus would, I think, could benefit them. So I would look at those options. But I think for me, just somehow get Arjun Tendulkar in there. Somehow give him a few games to see what is he made of. I mean, it just makes no sense to have him in the squad otherwise.
And Arjun
Brilliant take,
Tendulkar,
good.
if it doesn't work for you, we'll fly you to Canada to join the TCA and be coached by Zora the Great. If it doesn't work out for you,
Yeah, I
No
think Zora's
nepotism, no
job is
nepotism,
to spark
no
controversy is an interesting conversation.
no nepotism allowed at TCA over here.
What if they sponsor your
Okay.
team? I'm going to stop there, I think.
Then I'll think about it, Rook.
See, I told you he's just there to spark controversy.
All right. I think we've all gone through. I think Viren, you're left, or
no,
think
I'm good.
sorry.
I think we can move on to the champions. Hurry, whenever you're
All
ready.
right. A team that long-term fans would know that I'm a bit fond of, not too much, but yes, the Chennai Super Kings, a team that is very dear to my heart. A team that somehow while we can analyze it as much as we can, they tend to give us results that quite go the opposite of what we think. Sometimes we think they're going to have a stellar season and, doesn't quite match up. And sometimes we underestimate them and, outperform. Um, Zora, do you want to start the discussion on CSK squad over here? Analyzing a few strengths and weaknesses and, taking a look at a few purchases they had this auction.
I mean, before we start on analyzing the squad, can we please address the elephant in the room? Is this the last year or is this not the last year?
I mean, it's Zrain, go ahead.
Evergreen.
I think, as Harshaboglu said on Crickbuzz the other day, he now fears asking Dhoni that question at the end of each IPL season because he feels that that incentivizes him to go on for one more. But I think with the mega auction coming up next year, I think it's a good time to call it quits. And I'm not just saying this for MSD and for CSK, but for the IPL as a brand. I think when you're going into your 18th season, you're the marquee T20 league. You can't have someone approaching their mid 40s still captaining a side in my books. I think as much as he'll go down as one of the greatest ever captains, one of the greatest ever players, and CSK's eternal stalwart. I think it's high time that Dhoni wraps it up and wraps it up with him being at the top. I think it'll be unfortunate for him to have a poor season and have to force Stephen Fleming to drop himself or for him to drop himself midway through a campaign. Um, I've seen the CSK training videos and footage. He's back with his long hair, giving us a full cyclical structure. I think at the start of his career in 0405, it'll be a nice way to wrap up in full cyclical style. Um, and I also think, and I'm going to get to a few of their picks this year. I think players like Daryl Mitchell, players like Rachin Ravindra, they're already looking ahead to the future beyond Dhoni in terms of leadership, in terms of potential captaincy options with someone like a Daryl Mitchell, perhaps. Um, but my other question, and this is my other thing, I think CSK realized 2-3 years ago that they've had a very aging squad when they had the likes of Ambati Raidu, Suresh Raina in there. But now you have Rachin Ravindra, Mahesh Teekshana, Matisha Patirana. You have a group of young overseas players, a group of young Indian players as well, who like Ruturaj Gaikwad, for example, who will take this CSK team forward. So yeah, to keep it concise, I think this is the last hurrah or the last dance, as MJ would say.
Zora,
I'd
any
actually like
thoughts?
to just put a slight contradiction. Sorry, I mean Zora can go ahead, but just one
Go
small
ahead, Dhruv. Go ahead,
contradicting
Dhruv.
point from what Viren kind of said. I agree. They've started investing in youngsters. They're looking to change their strategy maybe from what it has been from a daddy's team to bringing in some young blood. But what I don't see at the moment is that Indian strength or that Indian core for a squad. Now, when you look at the likes of Mumbai, you look at Rajasthan, their team is built. Yes, they have a few international stalwarts in there, but their team strength is built around this Indian core. When you look at Mumbai, you have the likes of Ishan Kishan, Sky, Tilak Verma, looking at the future. So I don't see that at the moment in CSK squad. Yes, Gaikwad is a fabulous player, very promising talent, but other than him, I think everybody else is either too young and too inexperienced and not shown potential yet, or they're in a stage at their career where they're trying to prove themselves but have not been able to yet.
Mm. A very interesting takeover there. I think I think one thing I would add to that probably is I think despite the inexperience being a little jarring than you would like it to be, I think one thing they're still kind of keeping in mind is a focus on utilitarian players. Players who can fit specific roles
Mm.
within that team, but also players who can go beyond that. I think that has been something CSK has been known for, taking players and using them in a completely different light, but still having them as a backup for their, long time considered role. You had them experimented like with Sam Curran up at the top order. You had them playing out with Shane Watson. You had them, turning around Ajinkya Rahane's playing style. So I think you still have that utilitarian focus in there. But yes, I think a bit of we were criticized a long time back for being the oldest team in the bunch, but I think now it might be a bit of an overcorrection. But um, it might be something they might be looking forward to, and hopefully it matures for them in a good way. Zora, anything you'd like to add on to this discussion over here?
No, I think along with one name, Ruturaj Gaikwad, I think Shivam Dubey has been doing really well for them, a local talent. They really groomed him. It was an interesting pick when they got him, and then the way they promoted him up the order, and then the way he responded, I think was very good. So I think Shivam Dubey will have a very crucial role this year again. And I think Rachin Ravindra and Ruturaj Gaikwad opening. I think this is going to be a very interesting opening for a combination. I'm looking forward to seeing Ravindra in action this year to see what kind of approach he would have um, against some of the top bowlers in a T20 format. So I think overall it's going to be a very. It looks like a good squad. I mean, they have their usual bowling attack is there. The middle order looks fine as well. Yes, MS Dhoni is slowly, I think like Viren said, it's probably his last season. Not sure, we never know. But I think he for the role that he's as long as he's fit and if he can wicket keep, um, and then play the last 2 overs, I think he's still fine for that role. Keeping in mind that his fitness is okay. Because other than that, I mean, they have enough batters again, with Moeen Ali, with Gaikwad. I mean, Gaikwad bats 20 overs on average. Then you have Shivam Dubey in there, and then Rachin Ravindra as well. Looking at these technically sound batters, I don't see why Dhoni will need to bat. Keeping that logic in mind, I think he's okay because behind the stumps and as a wicketkeeper, he's still okay for a T20 match. His brain and the way he marshals his troops is just the reason why CSK has been so successful. So I would hire those services as long as I could and get everything out as long as he's fit. But I think looking at the way they've gone and they've picked up a Hyderabad's wicketkeeper this year. I think his name is Aravelli or something. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but he had a very good domestic season. So they're now slowly looking at future replacements for Dhoni as well. So I think overall very very good team. Definitely in my top four, and I think we will see some a different style of play from them this year. With some different names coming in, it's going to be not the usual names that perform. I'm making a pretty. I don't see Gaikwad. I think Rachin Ravindra is going to overshadow Gaikwad this year, and we're going to see some very interesting names perform for them this year.
Uh, and Harry, if you don't mind me quickly taking over on this front, I think, sorry, Junior, before we continue, Junior, thanks for tuning in. We will be covering DC, RCB, SRH, and the remaining teams on tomorrow's show at the same time. But I would quickly want to highlight something. And my biggest fear for CSK this season, as a Sri Lankan fan, I'm grateful that they've given us Patirana and Tikshana, or Patirana and Tikshana, and trusted Patirana and Tikshana rather. But my worry for them this year is Tikshana has been out of form for us over the past few months. I know they've been very reliant on Tikshana over the past 2 years. He's been there, Mr. Dependable during the power play, but he hasn't shown us that for Sri Lanka, for Jaffna, or for any of the other franchise teams he's played for over the past year. Something to look out for. And number two, Dhoni's golden child, Matesha Patirana. As many of us Sri Lankans know, he's had a bit of a topsy turvy run lately. He's out with a slight niggle, will miss a few games early on. So I think it's important for someone like Mustafizur to come in, and really stand up for himself. But again, the Fizz hasn't had the best of runs in the IPL. Also coming off a bit of a niggle after that Bangladesh Sri Lanka series. It's going to be interesting to see what their combinations look like early on. One player who I'm very interested by is the Lord Thakur. Thakur being coming into the CSK setup is very interesting because I think he's a very like for like player with Deepak Chahar. And I don't know, and since Deepak Chahar was their most prolific pacer last year, I don't know if you can play both a Chahar and a Lord Thakur together. which is where I bring in another name, a name not from this year's Under-19 World Cup, but the one 2 years ago, Hunger Gaker, who was absolutely brilliant for India in that Under-19 World Cup. Would it be an interesting time to potentially test out another young Indian fast ball, especially when you don't have Patiran early on? I think it might be the right pick to make to bring in someone young to see what they're made out of ahead of the mega auction later on next year. And with Stephen Fleming at the helm, I also see an avenue where you could also play three Kiwis in that playing 11 when Devon Conway comes back in. I think you can have a combination where you have a Conway, a Rachin Ravindra, and a Daryl Mitchell all in that top six, which will be interesting to see. And I know Stephen Fleming won't say otherwise with his Kiwi connections.
That's an interesting discussion. I think, as someone who has a bit of an admiration for Deepak Chahar, I think while towards perhaps the latter ends of the innings, you can see quite a similarity. I think his value with the new ball, I think, still is unmatched. I think throughout the IPL season, I think he's been one of the most successful with the new balls. Had tremendous breakthroughs, and I think when you look at the seasons where CSK has done really well in recent times, it has been because off the back of a very successful Deepak Chahar. But of course, I would love to see Hangarekar get a shot in there. I think someone who is going to be pretty resourceful as a player. I think someone who can fit that CSK type of mold of player. Other than that, I think let's move on to the playing 11 discussions. Rook, do you want to take over?
Yeah, I mean, just before I start on that, one thought that just popped in my head is that if, as Viren mentioned, their core to their bowling attacks is revolving around Deepak Chahar and Shardul Thakur, with no disrespect to them in their individual skill set, they do have a lot of potential. But if these two names are what's forming the core of your bowling attack and you don't have that wow factor, then I would personally think that it's a bit of a worry for MS Dhoni, given that the likes of Patirana is not will probably not be available for the first few games, and Hunger Gaker, again, inexperience, is never played at at the international level and with the pressure of an IPL game before. So yeah, maybe a slight concern there. But moving on to the 11 that I have, so I think I'd go to open with Gaikwad and Rachin Ravindra, and I feel like most of you all would probably agree with me. One name that we haven't spoken about and that I'd like to bat at number 3 in his renaissance period is Ajinkya Rahane. And it'll be very interesting to see if he can replicate what he did last season in the, dusk of his career and have a few more seasons to give us some magic like he did last year. So Rahane at 3. I'd probably go with Moeen Ali over Daryl Mitchell at number 4, purely because I am a fan of Moeen Ali. But again, it would depend on his form, and I would say maybe give him a few games, see how he goes. If he doesn't catch on, then bring in Mitchell in place of Ali. Dubey at 5, Jadeja at 6, Dhoni at 7, Shardul and Chahar 8 and 9, and then you've got I have for now Patirana and Tikshana, but if Patirana is not fit, then I'd probably bring in a Mustafiz for the first few games.
Yeah, I think I would follow a similar kind of 11. I think, where I would kind of play around is that middle order between Moeen Ali, Shivam Dubey, and Jadeja. You can always slot in the likes of a Mitchell Santon. I think, someone who has been resourceful in the past, especially when the pitches do get a lot more turnier, and, he's someone who can get in and be really resourceful with the ball and also provides you a good knock with the bat as well. Another name I think I could see Dhoni using here and there within the tournament is Mukesh Chowdhury, someone who showed quite a bit of promise in the past season. Someone who could go, who could be someone reliable, and I think like we said, the top order is pretty much sorted. I think it'll be an interesting experiment to see how they use Shaikh Rashid in this playing 11, whether he gets a shot or not, and Samir Rizvi, both top order batsmen, very young batsmen who are quite aggressive. If you've had the chance to see any clips of their batting, so it'll be interesting to see if somewhere along the line whether either CSK, in a good sense for me, is in a good streak of winning and they can afford maybe a bit of experimentation, or if things go down the wayside and they don't have much to lose, seeing them slot in and see how they permeate this 11. Viren, your thoughts?
Um, Very interesting picks by Rook, and I think it's very similar to Rook's 11. But a couple of things I want to keep an eye on is one, Rachin Ravindra has now made number three his own for New Zealand. And I'm wondering whether that number three slot suits him. If so, because it leaves Rahane, I think, in his optimal position now as an opener. Because I think last year, as Rook said in Rahane's renaissance period, I think Dhoni gave him the liberty to go after the ball aggressively during the power play. And if that's where he's positioned best, I'd like to see Rahane opening with Gaikwad, with Ravindra at number three, and as Rook said, a toss up between Mitchell and Moin Ali at number four. I think the advantage Ali brings here is his um, spin bowling as well. He can bowl in the power play in the middle, and has also proven to sometimes to be an asset at the death. But there was a name that was tossed in there by Zora, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, Mitchell Santner. I can't recall the last time. I think it was Deccan Chargers way back in 2009 when they had Gilchrist, Simons, Ryan Harris, and Cameron White playing together. But I can't recall the last time a franchise had four overseas players from the same team. And I could very well see that happening with CSK this year. I could see a team where you have Devon Conway when he's fit, Mitchell, Santner, and Rachin Ravindra all playing together. One thing that will be interesting for me, and this is where Dhoni might have to make a judgment call, is that toss up between Moin Ali and Mitchell. If he can use Rachin Ravindra with the ball as well, and we know Ravindra is quite potent with the ball as a spinner, does he then make the judgment call purely based off their impact as batsmen? If so, Daryl Mitchell is in the form of his life. I think the past 24 months he's been prolific with the bat. But Moin Ali is an IPL stalwart. So a good selection headache to have there.
I think just to add on to Viren's point, maybe thinking of it like this, um, I understand why you would want Rahane to open and have that 20 overs, but having like a right and left hand combination with Gaikwad and Ravindra would really give a competitive advantage to CSK, and then you could also sort of shape your middle order accordingly. If Gaikwad gets out, you can send in Rahane, and if Ravindra gets out, you can send in Dubey. Just to keep the momentum going or have the right-left combinations going from a technical or a strategic point of view as well, depending on the ballers they're facing. That's the only reason I would. Otherwise, I understand why Viren would want Rahane to back that in the power play up the order. But I feel like having the right as a coach, if I'm thinking having the right and left combination is always what I'm looking for to give me that competitive edge.
Yeah, and I think that sums it up nicely there for CSK and our first five teams over here. We hope you guys enjoyed this as much as we did. It's a great way to get back into the season. Think of players that that might perform well. Think of teams that might perform well. Work out combinations and permutations that might be interesting. Um, we briefly mentioned our predictions with the points about these teams. But once tomorrow's episode is done, at the end of that, we're going to have our proper rankings of the entire table, how we see it might end up towards that ends of the tournament. So do stay tuned in for that. Tomorrow we have another set of really exciting teams. Up there we have the likes of RCB, a very in the news team right now. Seeing some form of success. Rukai over here is a super fan of RCB. Pretty glad with the last few days results. A lot of interesting teams, a lot of teams that we missed, and you guys have asked today as well. So be sure to stay tuned to the Ion Cricket and subscribe if you like the content, and follow for more IPL related and World Cricket related content. This is us signing off.
Just before we sign off, I want to ask Zora this. Zora, thanks for joining us. Means a lot to have you on the show. We'll ask you this question because I doubt we'll manage to get you tomorrow as well. Out of these five teams we've discussed, MI, CSK, LSG, GT, and who was the fifth team? Sorry, I'm blanking here.
Rajasthan.
And Rajasthan. What would your ranking be of these five?
I would put Rajasthan right at the top. I would have Gujarat in the second position. Third, I would go with Mumbai, fourth Chennai, and then fifth LSG,
Perfect.
if that
Brilliant.
makes sense.
Harry, I know I ruined
Very
your
interesting.
ending, but if you
And Viren, I will try my best to be here tomorrow as well. Don't-
thank you. Harry, over to you.
Can we have some good background lighting as well tomorrow? Just a small improvement.
All right, we'll do. We'll do.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode and see you tomorrow.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me.